I switched on? Excellent. But brilliant to see so many of you here today. Is that too loud? Is that about right? Okay. I'm here to talk to you today about the road to SED. Is this? I think we've. Nice haircut, Andy. Thank you. Yeah, when I was the youngest SED, I did have more hair at that time. It wasn't recent. Huh? Thank you. Now I know this is what is known in the trade as a graveyard slot. You've all been out, you've had some lunch, maybe a couple of drinks, and when's RAM coming on? It can't be too much longer. Looking at your clock. So what I'd like you to do, if you could, a little bit of audience participation. If everybody could stand up for me. Don't look so damn enthusiastic, will you? Okay. Okay, shake yourself down a little bit. Better. And I'd like you to introduce yourself to the person behind by turning around and shaking their hand. Works every time. You can sit down now, everyone. Does nothing for you, mates. It gives me a laugh every time. You'd think people would have sussed that by now, but still not. Oh, fair enough. You can use it at your own meetings. Okay, now, like I said, talk to you about the road to SED. And I think it's true, most of us, when we started, I know when I started, I mean, they gave us an old video tape and showed us the business. How many people here saw a video before getting involved? Maybe a copy of the Enterprise magazine or a brochure. And I guess really, right at the start, I looked at Clean Easy, if truth be known, as a job. Now, I know, sorry, I'm in the way. That's what I'm trying to do. There we go. Looked at Clean Easy as a job. How many people, show of hands, and be honest, looked initially when you got into Clean Easy as a part-time job, just, you know, if you've come from an employed background. How many people here looked at it as a job, didn't really see it as a business? It's okay if you're sitting next to your upline, it's fine. Okay. And I certainly looked at it as a job. I don't, you know, only ever really been employed most of the time, so I guess that was natural. And when you look at a company magazine, or normal job, I should say, you see like a resume, don't you, of what it's about. And I guess that was the same. That was the way I was looking at Clean Easy. And it was an interesting thing when I started looking at Clean Easy, because I noticed one particular thing. It said applicant must be £40,000 in debt, or thereabouts. And what I mean, at the time, there were people who were joining Clean Easy, and everybody seemed to say, well, I was £40,000 in debt, and then I joined Clean Easy, and everything changed. And anybody here know of anybody that was around £40,000 in debt before they started? Roy Margaret Japp. And anybody else? Well, the people, Roy Margaret Japp and John and Hazel Stephen. Now, John and Hazel are downline to Roy Margaret Japp, so they duplicated themselves, I guess. But they've got these stories, and I think Chris Mason-Paul said a similar sort of thing. I was £40,000 in debt before joining. So I thought, well, I'm overqualified at this particular point to do this, but let's have a look a little bit further. So another part of the job description was neat experience in pressing trousers, which I'd never had, never been near, well, a pair of trousers as far as dry cleaning anyway. And anybody know who that might refer to? Chris Mason-Paul, of course. For those of you that don't know, Chris Mason-Paul, Chris and Wendy were dry cleaners before they started the business. Most they ever earned per year back in 1992 was around about £12,000, and have had cheques as large as £50,000 every 4 weeks from their Clean Easy business. So what else? What other part of this job description? Oh yeah, needs to have experience in accountancy. Anybody know any accountants, either past or present in Clean Easy? This talk's getting out, it's a slightly out of date, I must admit. Mark Prosser, Gene Warrington, and they were the two that jumped to mind. Both built huge Clean Easy business, both previous distributors of the year. Interestingly, Mark isn't with Clean Easy anymore, and I was a bit embarrassed when this changed about putting it in. I thought, how do I put this in? But there's a good, Mark was last seen flying off on a magic carpet to some genie a few years ago, I believe, along with a few other people that have since gone elsewhere. He left Clean Easy, didn't see it, lost the picture. Do you know the amount of people that I've known who've left Clean Easy, and I'll tell you a fact, not many people know this. You don't have to put it down on your notes. Mark's tried to come back. Okay, and quite a few other people tried to come back. That just tells you something, it's worth knowing. I've never seen anybody personally go the other way and be massively successful in any other network. And I remember when I went to my first conference in Barcelona, which I'll tell you a little bit about in a minute, but one guy came up to me and said, do you know, Andy, and it's just true, this guy was called Di from, I think he was from Wales, as he would be, I guess. But he actually said, I don't know if he's in Clean Easy anymore, but he just said something that really stuck with me. He said, if you can't do Clean Easy, forget the rest. I tell you what, he's 100% right. Nothing is as easy and as turnkey, I think is the American phrase, as this type of business. So anyway, but they were both successful people, accountants in Clean Easy, really diverse backgrounds, you know, that we're seeing here. And okay, what else on this job description? Work experience in shipyards preferred, but not essential. Anybody here know of anybody? Maybe. Gavin Scott? Alan Moffat? Anybody else? Rob Forster. Congratulations. All the three that I had down as well. What's Rob's best check? About 30-odd thousand, is it? 30-odd thousand. Oh, just average. Maybe he's had slightly better ones. And, you know, obviously you've seen Gavin with 40-odd thousand pound checks, and Alan Moffat was similar as well. And the last particular thing that this job description said was also must smell of fish. You can fill in your own jokes if you wish by that bit. But all I'm referring to, you can fill in whatever you like, but all I'm referring to is John Stephen, Mike Perry, the picture's there. Oh, is he next? Really? There you go. Well, yes, of course. But these two, I'm sure, as you know, I mean, I'm in the right area of the world, I guess, for you to know that these two guys used to be fishermen. I'm not going to do their talk for them. So that was the job description. Wide variety of people and backgrounds, I'm sure you'll agree. So what was my CV? If that's the job, and I'm looking at it, bearing in mind I'm still looking at this as a job. Hadn't got the business part really yet. And my CV was 10 years in the insurance industry. Anybody here been in financial services? Anybody still in financial services? No, they're not doing quite so well. As a lot less paperwork here, isn't there, than in that industry, which I won't bore you with. Somebody actually said to me a long time ago, said, Andy, if you want to be successful in financial services, you need to start at the bottom and then kiss it. Anybody had a job like that? In the corporate world, you know, where you only, you know, has anybody else had a job like this? You start, you know, climbing the ladder and then your face doesn't fit with some area manager or something like that, you just can't get any higher. And that's where I was within the insurance industry. Got qualifications, CSEs, grades 2, 3 and 4. Now I know there's been a lot of talk lately, hasn't there, about qualifications and changing. I've gone from O levels to GCSEs and now going to something else. CSEs was somewhere in the middle of that. You have to be of a certain age to know what these means. In a nutshell, it means I'm pretty stupid. Okay, if you really want a sort of level to judge it against. Not academically qualified, really. I think a CSE grade 1 was equivalent to 1 O level. Okay, so it wasn't going to get me much in the way of employment. I did try to run my own business for 6 months prior to joining Clean Easy. Okay, like I said, you know, I was looking at it more of a job, but I thought, well, I'll try something, and it just didn't work. Does anybody relate to that? Been in another business before and giving it absolutely everything? Yeah, show of hands, anybody who's been there, self-employed? A few? You don't feel great, do you? And I hear people all the time say you've got to believe in yourself. Have anybody heard that in Clean Easy? You must believe in yourself. Well, it ain't always that easy, is it? When you come in and you feel your confidence has been absolutely knocked. And I was going to look at doing one other business before starting with Clean Easy. I was going to go into undertaking. But I thought with my luck, people had stopped dying. Do you know when your confidence is low, you just don't see things right, do you? So yeah, gave that one a miss. Now, my reason for joining, and everybody's got different reasons of joining. You've seen the videos, haven't you? You've seen other people's testimonials. the reason I got involved, I remember seeing Mark Prosser saying, I thought it was an unbelievable opportunity to get into the armchair home shopping market, and it was a fantastic, you know, catalogue. It's like a supermarket, and it can't fail. These are the things that I heard of videos and stuff like that when I started. My reason for getting involved, drum roll, nothing better on offer. Sorry, okay, if that's not inspiring enough for you, that was my reason for starting. I said to my sponsor, can I go out? And because I'd slagged this off for 4 years. Everybody, that's another thing as well I kept seeing. People used to say, well, I ignored it for 4 years and didn't join. Chris Mason Paul did that, but then got involved. And I had nothing better on offer. I'd tried this other business, didn't really want to go back into financial services. And I said, could I earn sort of £200 or £300 a week just by starting, putting catalogues out? He said, yeah, if you're not afraid of a bit of hard work. I said, no, I'm not afraid of that. Wasn't enough, but it was enough to keep the wolves from the door. Anybody relate to that? It was something coming in that I could start with. So, got started. Now, here's my business plan, and it's fair to say it's not my business plan. Most of us tend to follow the business plan of our sponsors. Say yes, Andy. Yes, wonderful, I'm just checking. And again, yes, we do. I'm sure you do in Scotland as well. We tend to follow our sponsor's business plan, and it seemed to me to be quite successful on the surface. He said he went to Hong Kong the first time around back in the early 90s, and he said this is absolutely brilliant. And I thought he was the dog's doodles at this business. I thought he's going to be absolutely brilliant. I'm going to follow what he does. So he suggested to me, he said, put out 1,000 catalogues now per week. Now some of you will be thinking, I've got it, Andy. I know what you're talking about. Why don't you buy 200 catalogues and put them out 5 times a week? Is that what you mean? No. My sponsor turned up on the 6th of March 1995, my birthday incidentally if you're keeping a diary, with 1,000 catalogues. And you thought 250 were heavy. Try 1,000 catalogues. By the way, you can stop taking notes on this bit for the next slide or two, okay? Because this is just how I got started. Now, and I didn't know that's what you weren't supposed to do. And I didn't know as well, this sounds really naive, but nobody told me they didn't come made up. Was I in for a shock? And I don't know if you remember, I mean, this is going back and it's showing my age now. This was back 17 years ago. Do you remember when the phone numbers changed? I'm sure they did up here. Well, it used to be, that was 17 years ago. Frightening, isn't it? Well, it was 06, it used to be where we lived 0634 and it went to 01634. And we got a stamp made up, because I knew you had to get a stamp made up with your name and phone number, and they put 06134 instead of 01634. Had to handwrite 1,000 order forms, and yeah, I look at your faces, you're thinking, but this is just what I did. And I started about 9 o'clock in the morning, and about, like I said, it's my birthday as well, about 6 o'clock that night, thank you. You make up 1,000 bloody catalogues and get me out, I tell you. And it was, I tell a lie, I didn't. I made up 950, I thought sod the other 50 by the time I got to 950, and went out and placed them out. And the first part of the plan was 500 out Friday to Monday. It wasn't too bad, actually, got 500 out. And the second part of the plan, genius plan this was, like I said, I'm following my sponsor's plan here, was 500 from Saturday to Tuesday. Now, nobody actually ever used the word dregs at that time. I take it, I think it's dregs is the same term up here, is it? That is, yeah. And how many are you likely to pick up on the Monday from 500, roughly? Yeah, pretty much smack on about 350. We can tell who the big retailers are. So, all right, okay, you must know some big retailers, but about 300, 350. Which left, of course, about 650 to pick up on the Tuesday. And I wore the wrong footwear. Hilly area, some deck shoes. And people often say, what was the result of your first week in Clean Easy? And the result was that. Okay. People think that's a clip art image. That's actually a photo. That was me, absolutely, with hair, of course, completely knackered. And I actually came back. This is honest to God. I had blisters on blisters, literally. And I came Tuesday evening. My sponsor came round, and my feet were in a bucket of water. seriously, and he absolutely wet himself. He thought it was hilarious, and it rained solidly, and we're not talking light rain. Anybody relate to this? For the first, it's probably a good thing actually. Yeah, yeah, well, yeah, you might be used to it. I've heard, and it was persistently raining, and he actually said to me, he said, "You are going back on Wednesday to pick up the ones you missed on Tuesday, didn't you?" I won't tell you exactly what I said, but I lost 200 catalogues that week. So that was my start, like I said. So any new people here? This is how it is normally. Yeah. Okay, let me take you forward now. So to May 1995. Okay, a couple of months after I started. By the way, this training is not in real time. Okay, if you're worried how long it's going to be if we get up to date. Okay, we're going to be here till 7 o'clock and we'll be on sort of 1998. No, we do speed up in a minute. Now, I'd actually cut the catalogues down big time. Cut down from 1,000 a week to 800 catalogues a week. That was more than enough to do. But like I said, not what I would suggest. This next slide, by the way, you can stop taking notes. You have my permission. Now, I've got £186 in orders out of 800 catalogues. And you thought your week was slow. Okay? Now, this was the time prior or before tax credits. Okay? I was not on the dole. There was a normal thing, you know, wife, child to support. What do you do? You know, and I'll tell you what, one thing that happened this particular week as well, well, actually I was £700 overdrawn in the bank with £186 worth of orders, all the normal expenses that we all have, young family, and thought, where do we go here? And you know, it was at this particular time, with £700 overdrawn, have you ever had one of those eureka moments in life where I call it a eureka moment because you just get it. All of a sudden, everything clicks in your head and clicks into place. I thought, I've got it. I'm £700 overdrawn. What I need to keep doing is building the debt, building the debt, building the debt until I get to £40,000 overdrawn. This makes sense because it worked for John Stephen and Chris Mason, Paul and Roy and Margaret Jack. You have to have a good attitude sometimes, and that's important. So that's where I was at that particular time. So this, I always remember this particular week because I had no team left. You know, somebody never told me people sometimes quit. I had about 5 or 6 people. The whole lot disappeared in 1 week. I didn't know. There was a reason for that, by the way. That can happen, but that's a lot to do with what I was taught and the way I looked after, which I'll touch on a little later. Full-time in Clean Easy, which I've said. I was also ripped off for £300. Okay, now I'll explain this. Excellent talk that Sylvia did about how it was then, how it is now. Back when I started, and luckily it was only this way for a few months before things changed. Don't worry, this cannot happen to you now. But back then, you might be surprised to know, you had to wait until you got to the 13% level, or the equivalent of 13%, before you could apply for a credit account. Before, possibly so. I'm not as old as you then, so I couldn't possibly say. But anyway, not quite the olden days, 13% before you used to be able to get. So what used to happen is that anybody you recruited front line to you, you would place the orders on their behalf and deliver the orders to them and get the money back off them a week or so later, or not. And this is the case. What I was going to say, I just want to ask a question. Can anybody, I'm taking a real shot in the dark here, does anybody know the word stop? Possibly hold? How about delinquent? The debt was yours, and it used to take, and Mum over there will tell us, but I'm sure that it used to take a lot of distributors out, didn't it? It used to be called downline debt, so I was told by my father in Clean Easy. Yeah, who were good distributors at the time, and have actually, because their team, now Clean Easy take the debt. If there's any debt that's there, they take the risk. At that time then, it was actually your risk. So people think, oh, in the good old days, it must have been easy. Yeah, really. So that was, now I've got £1,000 overdrawn. So, you know, I think I'm getting nearer to the 40,000, you know, just keep going. It's going to all turn around. No upline support. Well, say no upline support. I had some upline support, I guess. The person that introduced me has since been kicked out of Clean Easy. Actually, not that long after I started, within a year or so, got kicked out for nicking people's catalogues. He actually got that the Clean Easy were trying to get something on him to get rid of him. It was actually when he started nicking people's catalogues in my team that was, I think, the straw that broke the camel's back. Some people are funny like this. Have you found that? The odd weird distributor out there. Never go down. And I actually said to him at one time, how do I deal with these other distributors? Is it one of those questions that we all ask? Yeah. Dealing with other, how do we do that? He said, and this is God's honest truth, what he said. He said, Andy, what I suggest, if you're building a team now, if that happens, what we do is hire a minibus, we take all our distributors out and we go and nick all their catalogues. That was the advice I had. And I never took that, by the way. And I stopped working with him about 3 months in, I think just about after that particular statement. Now you say, well, you must have somebody above him. Well, the guy that's actually above him actually resigned about 2 weeks ago, but he was one of these guys that was actually in since the 1960s. Used to go around with the suitcases and really didn't have any idea about the team building side or anything like that. And above them, well, Clean Easy. So we just got on with things. So pretty much, we were sort of working on our own from that time. And there were no meetings at all. I didn't know you were supposed to do meetings. Nobody told me. So we got on with it anyway. But there were no local meetings. So you guys have got obviously some great support here. I would highly recommend you take. Now, October 95. I will speed up in a minute, I promise. First Clean Easy conference in Barcelona. First Clean Easy conference in Barcelona. And this was the Hotel Bernat 2. Okay, I don't know what the Hotel Bernat 1 was like, but they didn't do that great a job with its replacement, I can assure you. We all had to come back and say, hey, it was a brilliant conference. And they are now, luckily, because the team have got to see that you've been there. And they said it was in Barcelona. It was about an hour outside Barcelona over a couple of mountains, but it was near Barcelona anyway. Here's a picture of the hotel management staff to give you an idea. Okay, pretty accurate. Okay, I'm not going to bore you. Like I said, time-wise, I don't think but like I said, things have got a lot better since that particular time. Now, March 96, year into the business, qualified at bronze executive distributors. Okay, went gold in the July of 95. Went on this to the first conference. So things must have changed. Would you agree? That was I'll go back there just for a second. That's May 95. Okay, there to a conference. How many months later? 4 months later? 5 months later? And that was qualifying, by the way, went gold 3 months after that. And like I said, March 1996, bronze executive means, it was called executive back then, but meant that we'd not only got to gold, but we'd helped 2 other people do exactly the same. So would you agree something must have changed from the circumstances there in May 95 to make these things happen? Massively it changed, and I will share with you what some of the things were. Now, September 98, really moving through the years now. Actually, I said it was 99, it was 98. So 3.5 years in the business, went SED, which meant that we got to the gold level, which is like about £9,000 worth of turnover, and we've shown at least 5 other people in separate lines how to do over £9,000 in sales. And there were some major changes, like I said, that happened in their months, which was the difference between me possibly leaving the business and moving on. So if you're in that sort of position, I'm not asking you to put your hand up, certainly if you're not near your sponsor, things can change around very quickly when you do. Now, November 98, a month later, got a new delivery van, and I'm sure you know what I mean by a new delivery van, new car, because that's, I mean, the big criteria now when looking for a car, of course, is does a broom go across the back seat? You know what I mean? It's not so bad they break them down now, but at that time, you needed to be able to fit the broom in there, which was one of those, which is a bit of an old banger now, but at the time, about 3 years old, and that was, you know, one of those things I'd always wanted. Anybody motivated by the cars? Some not. I'm not so much now, to be honest. I think been through that phase, but it was important at the time. And I wanted a Jag, just always wanted a Jag. And I tell you what, it's worth getting a car like that or similar, even a higher one if you can't afford one, just to see customers' faces when you turn up with a £2.99 order in the top of the range Jag. I tell you, you look at their faces and it's like watching a computer crash. It's like, I don't understand. Now, it was worth it just for that, if no other reason. Like I said, got fed up with actually putting all the petrol in it, so I've got all practical now, you know, once you hit 40 and a bit. Right, okay, question for you all. Do you need an upline? Yes, 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 yes. Okay, question 2 for you. Well, actually, no, the statement's no. But I don't think you need an upline. This is not a reason you should abuse your upline. But the question was, do you, which you can do, I suppose it's optional. But the question was, do you need an upline? And the answer is no, we didn't have an upline there. And in many ways, you know, just think about this just for a second. You know the great thing about not having an upline? And I'm sure you can think of several reasons. The great thing, I had nobody to blame. I had to get on with it. The amount of time I hear people blaming their upline for their success. Can you imagine any other business? Isn't Clean Easy great to give you an upline? To give you somebody to blame? No other business does that, you know, for my lack of current financial success. But, and here's a big but, you do need somebody to follow, I believe. You really do need somebody to follow. Now, who did I follow? I had nobody there. I was going up blind. I couldn't get on with my immediate upline. The guy above him, you know, in the 1960s, he knew what was going on, but not 1996 or 1995. And my mentor was a VHS videotape. And now, some of the younger ones of you probably have to ask your parents what that is, okay? Similar to an FLV file nowadays. Some of you are going to say, what the hell's an FLV file? But yeah, or a DVD. Now, on this particular, this guy was, his name was Paul Gamay, and he'd been in lots of other networks. He did 2 good things, okay? He actually introduced somebody that's turned over millions of pounds of business since they actually started, and that leg's still there, but he quit after a year. Lost a lot of money. But one of the most valuable things, and probably just as equally as valuable, was he gave me this VHS tape. And on this tape, it was by a guy who was with a company called Quorum. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of that. Probably not, because they've been defunct. Yes, used to sell personal electronic products. They folded back in the 90s. And this guy went on to many other great things, who was actually working with this company called Quorum. And this guy may have been somebody that you've heard of. His name was Jeff Olson. And I had this information, and it was mind-blowing. The stuff that he was talking about, he hit me at exactly the time I needed somebody. I was, shall I stay, shall I go with it? Needed some guidance. And it was like a 2-hour tape, nothing to do with Clean Easy. This guy's probably never heard of Clean Easy, but 2 hours. And it was all the problems I was having he was talking about. And he said most of the solutions. Now, do you think it would be a good idea to listen to some of the solutions? Isn't it amazing how many people don't? But listen to some of the solutions. I thought, I've got nothing to lose, and start putting them into place. And some of the stuff that he went through and shared on this particular VHS tape, some of it may sound basic to you now, because many of you have read the book The Slight Edge, or heard, and I was doing trainings on this guy's stuff for years. Like, nobody knows who this guy is from America. Then he brought out the bloody book, and everybody thought, this guy sounds like you, Andy, doing the same trainings. But some of them, the bits that he said, treat it like a business. It's a business, treat it like a business. Some of you probably heard this, but you know, if you put 100K into this business, I always say when I'm down south, I said, if somebody said to you, go and, ironically, I just realised, I always say, if somebody said to you, you've got to be at Edinburgh Airport at 7 o'clock on Monday morning, you'd be there. Now that's talks when I'm in London. Obviously it's not quite so effective up here, is it, when it's around the corner. But the point being, you could say, if I said to you, you put 100 grand into it, I said, you've got to be at a meeting in Heathrow at 7 o'clock Monday morning. You'd be there, wouldn't you, if you put 100 grand in? But some people say to you, well, you know, come to this meeting today. Did anybody expect people to come to this meeting that aren't here today? Yeah, they said they're going to be here. How much does this meeting cost? £10, okay. It probably does. But £10 to come here to get the right information on a Saturday, and they say, oh no, I want to go somewhere else. you know, watching the footy or something like that. So it's a matter of understanding. If you treat it like a business, treat it like you put 100 grand into it, you can't fail. You really can't if you really seriously, because I treated it like that. You've got to go, you'll find the information, won't you? If you put 100 grand into it, you would just keep asking until you got the right information. This business is perfection on paper. He said the biggest problem is when you put people in it. It sort of goes wrong a bit, doesn't it? Have you noticed that? You know, you get 5, you get 5, you get 5, you get 5. It's easy. You've got 4 grand, 4,000 people. What's it Jim Rohn says? Like herding cats. People are going off in different directions. It's a challenge, but it's worth it. And if you can get a few people thinking the same way, and you have to go through the numbers, you have to understand they're not going to be your first 5. It's 5 serious people. You can get people working together, it can cause some fantastic things within your organisation. But it takes time. Ignorance on fire, he said, is better than knowledge on ice. Think about that for a second. You don't need to know anything. When I got in at the start, did I have some upline that was going to give me lots of information? No, I didn't. I just knew if I did so much per week in sales, I would get, you know, if I got, I think I used to look for about £700 to £800 worth of business. I knew I had to get up, at the time it was about £1,800 a week. By the way, there's a tip for you. I break it down weekly. Rather than looking at 9 grand, it seems too far off. If you break it down to £2,250 and you take care of so much of that yourself, then it's just a matter of just filling the gaps to make sure. You put more people in, you've got somebody regular, tick them off. You don't need to know it all. I know people, by the way, in our business that know everything about the marketing plan, but they do nothing with it. They're knowledge on ice. You don't need to know everything. Trust me on this. If you're ignorance on fire, people will grab hold of your shirt tails to follow you. Okay? They'll go miles to watch you burn. They really will. You don't need to know everything. 3% of distributors are made in heaven. Some of you are going, oh no, only 3%. Well, that's just the way it is. The majority of people. But think about it this way. Every 33rd person you bring into your business is probably going to be a superstar or potential superstar. And here's one of the key things as well. They don't have to be your front line. This is one, if you understand this, this is not a traditional organisation, you know, where the manager looks after that, or the area manager looks after the manager, looks after. That's the way we're brought up, job mentality. If you keep in contact with people in your business, how many people here have got a business for less than £20,000 in turnover? Show of hands. Less than £20,000 every 4 weeks. You've got a successful business team. You've got less. Everybody here anybody got less than £20,000 turnover every 4 weeks? Put your hand up. Okay. People you introduce, make sure you keep in contact with them. Doesn't have to be big contact, just a phone call, just to introduce yourself. Because sometimes the people that you introduce don't realise there may be a star there. And sometimes you can find them, they relate to you, and they'll actually, and very often, in fact, I would say the majority of people, the quality people you bring in, will not be your front line. There'll be people under your front line. So it's really important that you do that. Everything here is easy to do. You would have heard this said before. I was saying this for years, nobody had ever heard it. Said everything's easy to do. Is it easy to put shop window cards out? Yes? Say yes, Andy.
Yes, Andy.
Wonderful. Is it easy to put flyers out?
Yes, Andy.
Is it easy to put a little advert on Facebook? It's easy to do. You know, the problem is it's easier not to do. It's the daily disciplines you have to put in. It's easy to put 100 flyers out. How long does it take? 100 flyers, depending on hour. It probably does in Scotland, spread out. I was going to say, the heavy flyers up here you have. You haven't got to go and collect them back, by the way, just so you're aware. It's quicker. It depends on where you're going, but 20 minutes, 25 minutes, 30 minutes. It's easy to do, but it's easier not to do, and that philosophy will take you out of the business if you don't understand it. Now, I am going to be a little longer than 5 minutes, but hopefully another 5. No, I'm just saying, you're looking all... Now, also with Jeff Olson, you remember, how many people here went to see the New York conference when it was launched? We're at Birmingham. Do you remember that? A few of you. And Jamie said, well, the New York conference is coming around, and this is bearing in mind 15 years after I'd first heard of Jeff Olson, because this guy was my sponsor, in effect. I was listening to him for advice, and I thought, I'm never going to have a chance to meet this guy. But he said at when they announced New York, he said, we're having a very special guest speaker, Jeff Olson. thought, wow, I don't know about you, but New York really did it for me. I thought, but New York, when he said Jeff Olson, I thought I got a chance to meet one of my heroes that really, you know, in the business, in the industry, that really made a big difference, because without him, I probably would have been out of the business. And I said, this particular picture you can see up here is me talking to Jamie, and I got somebody in our team. I said, I need you to take this photo. It's really, really important because it's going to be on stage in around about 11 months' time in New York. As you know, not 11 months, about 13 months' time in New York. I said, you must get this photo. And I'm saying to Jamie here, you can see his eyes. God's honest truth, I said, Jamie, I'm taking this photo. You can see my team member over here is taking it. I said, the reason being is that I'm going, and I told him about my story with Jeff Olson. And I said, I'm going to be introducing Jeff Olson in 13 months' time. I'm going to actually be introducing him onto the stage of the Clean Easy Conference at the Waldorf Astoria in New York. And his eyes went, really? This is some serious goal setting that you're doing. I said, there's no way I'm missing it. It's just not an option. Now, also at that point, on Easy Reach, I said to Michael, I said, look, something that makes me nervous to do, but I've got to go on Easy Reach and put out and tell my story about Jeff Olson, all the stuff I've just said, and I've got to, because somebody told me a long time ago, said, if you want to, actually Mark Prosser told me this, he said, if you want to be successful, he said, go and tell a lot of obnoxious people what your goals are. He said, because if you tell a few obnoxious people, you're going to make sure you do it, because otherwise they're going to turn around, aren't they, and say, did you do that? Did you go to Miami? Did you go to Dubai? Did you go to New York? And I thought, if I go onto Easy Reach, there's got to be some obnoxious people out there that's going to remind me. So I did it, and I went and said exactly that, and cut a long story short, we qualified as a top qualifier for New York, and it wasn't bolted on for us at all. Really wasn't. We had a load of work to do, but we qualified as a top qualifier, and guess what? We did. Actually, it was it's actually worth it. If you go on, you can see it on YouTube. It's quite emotional actually for me, because I did this talk and I'm mentioning some of this stuff about what Jeff Olson did. It's on YouTube. You can find it there on the New York talk. It's only about 12 minutes doing an introduction, and obviously met him as well with a the Slight Edge book afterwards, normal picture and the signature type of thing. But that was a major goal for me. But I've done that before, and it's a good tip if you want to go to Dubai. Go home today, tell a few obnoxious people what you're going to do, put it on Facebook, whatever you're going to do, somebody will see it, and they may remind you, and it drives you on when things are hard, when things get hard. Now, fundamental changes, I'm going to flick through these fairly quickly, made back in 1995. No more financing. If you've done this, could I recommend you don't? I'm talking about giving people catalogues, giving people flyers. You think you're being a nice sponsor and doing them a favour and they'll love you for it. They really don't. They just expect you to do more for them, like a boss. They need to know there's a price to pay. Jeff Olson said that. Even though it's small in this business, people need to know there's a price to pay for success. Like I said, I'm going to run through this pretty quick. If they're not earning, people, you may advertise for people to earn, what, £50 to £300 a week, something like that. When they come in, get them at least a 50 quid a week quick. Give them the tools to do what they need. And if they're starting break free, obviously they need to expect it's going to take a bit longer to get there. So if they're not earning, they're quitting. The little things matter, things like catalogue presentation. It's only a catalogue, it's only a bag, but I tell you what, your people are following you and they're going to be following your example. So make sure you set a good one. And trust me, have you noticed this? People pick up your bad habits more than they do your good habits. How does that work? I don't know, but they do. Don't focus on the zeros. Anybody now, some of you may relate to this who are building a team. How many people actually said, oh, look at all the zeros on my GSA. It must only be me. No, it's not. In fact, if you're doing it properly, you're always going to have more zeros than people doing it. So don't let that fret or bother you too much if you see all the zeros, because it means you're moving forward. If some people can't see it and they lose sight of their goals, that's up to them. Heard a little poem a while ago, but it's true. The optimist and the pessimist, the difference is quite droll. You see, the optimist sees the donut where the pessimist sees the hole. Some people say, I've got donuts in my business. But the point being, look at the people that are doing it. Don't worry about the ones that aren't doing it. Concentrate with the people that are doing it. And I wouldn't do that, by the way. I know I'm going to count up. If anybody, some of you have done this, I'm going to count up all the people that are doing nothing. Well, that really helps your psyche, doesn't it? Have you found that really helps you? Don't do that. Just my advice. Yeah, and also saying about who won that book? Will it make the boat go faster? Or your phone go faster? So I said, who won the book? Will it make your boat go faster? And that is an excellent book, by the way. If you haven't got that, get it and read it. And he talks about self-improvement, little bits of self-improvement every day. If you got who here can get 1% better each week? Show of hands. Who can get 1%, just 1% better each week? Then in a year's time, you're going to be 52% better than you are now. That's going to make a difference just by learning. And it's not massive steps, just small steps on a regular basis that will help you out. I'm not going to do that slide. The blame list. Okay, we spoke about this earlier about having a sponsor to blame. Well, people, as we've already said, like to blame their sponsor. Already done the reasons for that. Or Clean Easy. Oh, Clean Easy last week. They sent me an item, you know, or they sent me a delivery through and I've had an item missing and I've had another one missing this week. What am I going to do? You know, it's Clean Easy's fault why I can't be successful. Well, maybe. I tell you what, as you said, you should have been back in 1995 with a 80% out of stock rate. I'm not joking, 80% at one time was out of stock. 8-0. Not the odd item here and there. The economy, it's economy's fault. Do you know, I've seen people say, you know, the problem is why I can't build a Clean Easy business is because of the economy. I've heard other people say, well, the reason I can build it now is because of the economy. They can't both be, you know. Is the economy going to make much difference to you? Not really. Your team. Oh, well, you know, if you had the team I had, no, what, you know. You choose, by the way. Anybody ever had anybody in their team quit? One or two. Okay. Let me ask you another question. Honestly now, put your hands up if you saw it coming, but you put your head in the sand. Come on, honesty. Okay, if they're sitting next to you, maybe don't answer. But you know what I mean? You thought, you know, we put our head in the sand, don't we? They won't quit, they won't quit. Oh my God, they quit. And if you've only got 2 or 3 people, you're devastated. However, you have the choice to go and replace them people before they quit. It's your choice how you actually do that. Be proactive. Don't wait for them to quit. Craig White said, you know, if you get a really, really good person, he said, go and find their replacement. Good answer. Then it's not down to them, you see. You see, your business is 100% down to you. You see, if you blame all of that, you've got nothing else to work with. Think about it. The economy, Clean Easy, your team, your upline. What else have you got to work with if you haven't got all that? And I think Jeff Olson said, take 100% responsibility to what happens to your business. 100%. And this is the weird thing that makes you think. He said, even if it's not your fault, but take responsibility for it. And the reason he says on that, and he's right, he said, as soon as you start blaming somebody else, you've given away your control. Just take whatever happens, 100% responsibility, saying, I could have done something different, I could have brought other people in, and it'll make a major difference to your business. And just in summary, well, just one story, really. A fable to finish. Nearly done, all right. She doesn't look too happy. Oh, right, okay. The fable of the 3 monkeys. Anybody heard of the fable of the 3 monkeys? See no evil, hear no evil, yeah? Nothing to do with that, all right? This is a different fable. You're going to like this one. Different monkeys. Okay, let me tell you about these particular monkeys. There's 3 monkeys in a pet shop for sale. Okay, obviously not this country, somewhere else. Anyway, this guy goes in and says, interested in the monkey, as you do. He said, that first monkey over there, how much does that monkey cost? He said, well, that one, sir, costs £500. I said, oh, £500, what does that one do? He said, well, that monkey, sir, will put out 200 catalogues twice a week and collect them back. I said, excellent. I couldn't think of worse ways to spend my money. So he said, what about that second monkey there sitting next to him? He said, how much is that one? He said, that monkey, sir, is £1,000. I said, £1,000, what does that monkey do? Well, he said, that monkey puts out 200 catalogues twice a week, but also finds 5 other people to do the same. I think, brilliant value, excellent. He said, what about that third monkey sitting in the corner? What does that monkey cost? He said, sir, that monkey is £10,000. He said, 10 grand? What does that monkey do? He said, well, personally, sir, I've never seen him do a damn thing, but the other 2 monkeys call Lynn McDonald. You can work that one out. I did check it out with Lynn. I said, is it okay? I know that's not the case, by the way. Okay, Lynn's works very hard, and she's put in an excellent meeting today. And thank you for listening. Hopefully something was found of use. Thanks. Thank you.